You're gonna have to
There,
repeat that part about the professional streaming.
I was going to do that. I am a professional streamer, and and as you can tell, there you go, hacker. As you can tell, this is going to be a completely seamless, uh, tech problem free stream. But welcome to the stream, everybody. It is my pleasure indeed to welcome everybody to the stream. And just to give you a few words first, before we get the things going. Of course, in an hour or so, we're going to take a look at System Shock. But first of all, uh, I have the opportunity to talk to these people who are well, let's just say Night Dive Studios. They're synonymous with making older games playable on modern platforms. Um, from titles like I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream to I think Seventh Guest and 11th Hour. I think they did Necropolis. Doing remasters of games like Turok 2, Doom 64, Forsaken. The list goes on and on and on. Blade Runner, Quake. In 2015, Night Dive released the enhanced edition of System Shock, which was an updated version of the game that added widescreen, high resolution textures and whatnot, and mouse look controls that were more modern and whatnot to make the game a lot more playable at the time. And back then, they were talking about doing this very project, which is to do a completely redone, rebaked, recooked version of System Shock for modern audiences. And it's been a long, long time coming, and they've put a tremendous amount of work into it. And today, after what is it, like 7 years, maybe? I don't know, 8.
Just
Of
shy of 7.
crazy of hard work. We're celebrating the release of the completely remade System Shock, and I have the honor and privilege to speak to two of the people behind the success of Night Dive Studios, the CEO and founder Stephen Kick, and the director of business development Larry Kuperman. Hello to both of you.
Very nice to be here.
Yeah. Oh, it's great to have you here. It's like I say, I'm as eager to see this game come out as anybody, and apparently, as it looks right now, the response so far has been overwhelmingly positive. Like, which is that in itself is a rare thing. So kudos to that. Why don't we start off? I just want to start off by talking about Night Dive itself, the company, before we get into the game. Maybe Steve, maybe you can start there. How did Night Dive come to be?
Well, that's a really good question. Back in 2010, 2012, I was working as a character artist at Sony Online Entertainment. And you just get to this point sometimes in that kind of development setting where you just burn out creatively. And my girlfriend at the time, is also a character artist, suggested that we pretty much sell all our worldly possessions, pack up the essentials into our Honda Civic, and drive across the border into Tijuana. So I was happy to oblige.
Okay.
And we spent the next 10 months driving through Mexico and Central America. And during that time, I had brought a netbook with me and was just trying to find some inspiration, play some old games that had originally inspired me to want to be part of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one particular night in Guatemala where there was this wicked tropical storm, and for whatever reason, I just decided that was the perfect time to play System Shock 2.
Right.
So I loaded up the ISO. I think I had an ISO and a virtual drive on this laptop, and I couldn't get it to install. I tried all the usual tricks, changing the properties and the compatibility settings, and no dice. So I went to GOG.com, goodoldgames.com, and it wasn't there. But it was the #1 requested game on the site. So I went through the comments, through the wish lists, and I came across an old article from G4 TV about what happened to Looking Glass after they went out of business in 2000. And I had discovered that the rights to the franchise had gone to an insurance company in the Midwest called Star Insurance Company.
Mm-hmm.
And the author of the article, Jared Newman, had actually talked to this guy named George Borkowski. Do you remember that name, Larry?
I do.
Yeah. And he was the general counsel that basically represented these insurance companies. So I looked him up and I sent him an email and said, hey, what are you doing with the franchise? And he wrote me back and said, nothing. Do you want to make System Shock 3? So again, I'm like in the middle of the jungle, and I probably have like $5,000 to my name to get home. So I suggested the next best thing. Well, why don't we put the originals back out on platforms like GOG? They had never had that suggestion before. So we spent the next couple of weeks negotiating how it was going to work. And I basically tried to figure out how the hell I was going to get that to happen.
Right. It's amazing how these things start out from just asking about it, just making a step in a certain direction, and suddenly realizing like, oh, someone's interested in this. Wait, this could happen.
Yeah, I found out later that the timing was just really good. Apparently, Electronic Arts still had the trademark, but they just let it lapse basically within the time frame that I had been talking to Star, and they wanted a way or a mechanism to be able to claim that trademark. And the only way that they could do it is if they commercialized the game. And here I came along with opportunity to do that. So yeah, right place, right time. The only thing I needed was a lot of money, which I didn't have. So I asked my mom and my father-in-law and a good friend of mine if they would throw down, whatever they could spare. And between the three of them and some money that I made just doing contract work when I got back, I saved up enough to put down, up to that point was the largest sum of money I ever had as a minimum guarantee or licensing fee. Right. And then from there, it was basically just reaching out to GOG via the website and letting them know that I had the rights to redistribute the game. It sounds crazy when I'm talking about it now, because I didn't go through LinkedIn. I just went through the the suggestion box pretty much on the website. Right. And they wrote me back, and it was part of this thread with Oleg, who you may remember.
Klepovsky.
Yeah. And the marketing guy who had received the email, Trevor, long ago, I think, he said, hey, this guy claims he's got the rights to System Shock 2. And Oleg said, yeah, he's probably full of shit, but why don't you follow up with him anyways? Never forget that.
Amazing.
So that's how NightDive started. We sold the game on GOG first on February 13th, 2013. And it just did so amazingly well that I decided to dedicate the rest of my career to digging up these lost classics and making them playable again.
Excellent. Yeah, and I mean, it's like I say, I think a lot of times these types of plans, if you had thought in the beginning of what it like, where if you look at where you are now, and if you thought from the beginning the possibility of something like this happening, you might not have even started to look into it in the first place, because it's, oh, this couldn't happen. But you just but if you take a step in that direction, doors might open, and then suddenly doors open, and before you know it, you look back and you think, well, look where I've come.
Well, speaking of doors opening, those early days were pretty tough, because all we had was basically System Shock 2 up to that point, and maybe a couple of other small games like you mentioned I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, and I'd gotten to know the Trilobite guys, so we did 7th Guest and 11th Hour on, I think, just exclusively Steam. And then I met Larry Kuperman, who was able to open the rest of the doors and essentially get the rest of the games that we've done since then.
And things went straight downhill from there. Before we begin talking, one thing I want to give out as a PSA to anybody in the community listening: when a woman says to you, "Let's go across the border to Tijuana," marry her.
I did.
Good. Definitely good advice.
Smart move. Smart.
Good advice. So actually, Larry, maybe it's a good opportunity for you to talk about how you ended up getting hooked up.
So a year after, basically a year after Steven started Night Dive Studios, my career had started at Stardock. Long time ago, back in 2001. The first game that I did for Stardock was The Corporate Machine, followed by Lightweight Ninja. Neither of those are exactly memorable hits. But then the third game that came along was Galactic Civilizations, and Gal Civ 1. And then we would go on to do Gal Civ 2, reach out to our friends at Ironclad Studios. Actually, they reached out to us and did Sins of a Solar Empire. And then during that time, we had a number of other titles. I was the biz guy for much of that stuff. We went through that period, but we had also built up a platform, a Steam competitor. Unlike GOG, it did contain DRM, but it was a kinder, gentler DRM. At least that's what we felt at the time. And I took over business operations for that. It was called Impulse. I did that from 2011 to 2013. So during that period of time, Steve has started Night Dive Studios. At the end of my time with Impulse, it was sold to GameStop. It became the GameStop application, and I was business development manager for PC Digital for GameStop, which sounded really cool. Except about 2 years after I got there, GameStop decided that that digital was just a passing phase, and that brick and mortar was the way that things were going to go. That I have seen the future, and it looks just like the 1950s. So my entire division got lopped off, including me, and there I was. I'm not quite as old as I am now, but still an elder statesman in the gaming community, without a job for the first time in 30 plus years. First time I was ever without something.
Right.
So I was doing some work with a variety of companies, some in the mobile space, doing some consulting stuff. I'm helping to set up some companies, but I really wanted to get back into something creative. So I cold called Night Dive Studios. Night Dive was actually the second company that I called. As soon as I spoke to Steve, and that we had never met in person. This was all via Skype at the beginning. We hit it off. Despite the difference in our ages, despite the difference in the amount of hair that we have, all of those things are irrelevant. We really hit it off, and I accepted a position at Night Dive without having ever met Steve. He hired a head of business development without ever having met me, and we met for the first time at day one of GDC in 2014. GDC was when we first met, and our very first appointment was with Oleg Klabowski from GOG. That was the very first one. We had never met, and both Steve and Oleg are much taller than I am. And there was a moment when the three of us rendezvoused, and I wasn't sure which person was which person. But we got all of that straightened out, and we started working with GOG, from the earliest days. But I had asked Steve who he wanted to talk to at GDC, and Steve said, "Well, I want to talk to everybody." So I got there, and day one I said, "Well, I figured we'd start with the alphabetical order, so we have an appointment with Activision in 5 minutes, and the rest, as they say, has been history." It's really funny because I had worked on restoring classic games before I joined Night Dive. I didn't know that it was going to be a thing that I was going to do. But back in my days with Stardock and back at Impulse, we restored the game Total Annihilation, which had been lost. And the rights of that, ironically, were with Atari. So it's just funny how things kind of go in that circle, that great circle of life.
Yeah.
But we brought back, Total Annihilation, and that was in 2010. And little did I know that that 4 years later that I would be embarking on a career with that. When I accepted the position at NightDive and I began to tell my friends and professional contacts, my friend Mike Cressweller, who I'd worked with at Stardock and at GameStop, said, you'll finally be selling the games that were the last games you enjoyed playing. So that was pretty prescient of Mike, and Steve and I have this rapport with a number of our titles, this commonality of experience. I mean, Turok was something that Steve played with his dad, and it was something that I played with my son.
Yeah.
So that kind of explains why things have aligned the way that they have. It was a shared love of classic games of a particular era of vintage titles.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. There's two things that come to mind there. And one is, number one, I can identify with you, for example, because I'm a 60-year-old Twitch streamer. What? And years ago, I mean, I would never have thought that I would be even doing this. But when I think back, there was years ago when I used to work for a software store. I used to sell games, used to play games and whatnot.
Yeah.
At a time when it wasn't necessarily the cool thing to do when you were in your 30s. Whereas nowadays, it's a completely different world. But the main thing that, and I think the point that you're getting at there too, is just the fact that, or at least the way that I see it, is that the thing that holds all this together is a love of games, a love of maybe particularly of a particular time, but that's what makes the whole thing come together. That's what makes you continue to try and like to Stephen, to pursue this, because of deep within yourself there's a love for this thing, and you see something in there that you might be able to work with and do with to make a career out of somehow, or maybe even
we say all the time that at NightDive, every project that we do is a passion project.
Yep.
We've been fortunate enough and successful enough that we don't have to do a game because we need the revenues. I don't want to assume that I don't assume that I look askance at making money. That's not that's not a good character trait in the head of business.
I like money.
But we put a lot of love and all of the games that we do are meaningful to us in one way or another.
Right. I guess it's a common sort of an idea that it's not, you don't do it for the money, but the thing is, it's the idea that if you do something that comes out of your passion, money will come, because people will recognize it if you're, or at least that's the deciding factor ultimately. But of course, you have to make money decisions. There are business decisions that you have to make in certain things and whatnot, but if you don't, if the passion and love is not there, you might as well be selling light bulbs,
And people will recognize that.
Sure.
People know when it's what's the term that the kids use, say, when it's a money grab.
Yeah.
They get that. So.
Yep. I was going to also ask about the involvement of Samuel Villarreal. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name. I just knew him as Kaiser. I just knew him as Kaiser. Yeah, exactly. He was a big proponent especially in the early years of some of the remasters you did with NightDive, right?
And he still is. There would be no NightDive, certainly not in the modern way. The way NightDive is understood today, without Sam, without Kaiser.
Yeah.
So I had joined NightDive, and we began looking for new IP. I think that's where Steve's story kind of leaves off. One of the titles that we picked up and that we agreed would be something that was really worthy of restoration was Strife.
Absolutely,
it was one of the earliest games that we did, and we knew of Sam's work because he'd been posting it. Certainly, he was the one that had already done Doom 64 on his own. Not to the level that the finished product would be, but had taken the first stab at it. So Steve reached out to Sam. Not long after Sam joined, and also on the Strife project, we hired James Haley and James Quasar. Quasar and Kaiser were really our two OGs. The next game that we did after that was Turok,
right?
And our team stayed pretty much the same. But when we got into Turok 2, we knew that the game needed to have multiplayer to be complete. So that's when we brought on Edward Richardson, and that was the nucleus of our team, and that still is those are really the founding members.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, where does Daniel fit in? Daniel Gratian.
Steve, you should tell that story. Daniel predates me.
Yeah, so when System Shock 2 launched on Steam, I was browsing through the community forums, and people will post guides on there, like modern guides and walkthroughs and that type of thing. And Daniel had posted a very exhaustive walkthrough of not only the game, but like a modding guide of all the best mods to use to enhance the experience. And I was so impressed with it that I reached out to him and asked him if he wanted to do something like that locally on our website at the time. And he agreed to it. And we just got along really well. And I noticed that he had some game dev experience, not professionally, but definitely on the indie side. He had made some of his own maps for Left 4 Dead, and they were quite enjoyable. And he had a small group of people that really enjoyed his work. And I asked him if he wanted to help out on kind of the technical side of things for NightDive, like helping upload builds to Steam, getting the Steam pages ready mostly. As you know, GOG they take care of all that, but on Steam it's up to the publisher or the developer to set all that stuff up. And I really needed a hand at that point,
right?
Or somebody that just had the the desire to learn it all and to become knowledgeable of how it worked, so that we could put more games up there. And yeah, he's been with us ever since.
Right. Are there any other people behind the scene that you want to mention that people should know about that don't?
Oh man, well,
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that work at NightDive now.
Exactly.
Yeah, just off the top of my head, on the System Shock side of things, since that's what we're here for.
Exactly.
Matthew Keneally is our lead and only engineer, and he was a good friend of mine back in college, who I had met, and he got his start at Cryptic, and worked on the Star Trek MMO, and had kind of done the same kind of game dev story that I had. And when we started the System Shock project, he was anxious to join. His brother Justin is a environment artist. Evie Manzel is our lead artist and art director on the project. Rob Waters, of course, the OG artist from System Shock and the BioShock series. Justin Kahn's our lead producer.
John Peros for the soundtrack.
Yeah, John Peros did our soundtrack and all the mixing and the sound design. Jed Wall is also a Looking Glass Irrational veteran who was our lead character artist. We got Stephen Bodnard, who is also worked at Irrational. I think the last thing he worked on was BioShock Infinite. He's our lead animator. I mean, I could go on.
Like, sure.
There's a lot of really wonderful people that make it all work.
And I think, and another important part of it is the fact of the number of people that you mentioned who were actually involved in the original games, that were actually from the original companies. That was a big part of the development of this.
Yeah, and it was important that when they joined on too, especially like in this second phase of development that we had after that initial hiatus, that we got people that really loved Shock as much as we did.
Yeah.
Because we were doing something that only they were going to be able to understand and deliver, and we couldn't afford to take any more time or effort looking for the right people.
Right.
So it was either you love this thing more than anything and you're willing to see it through, or we're going to have to find some alternative. And we just got lucky.
Yeah. Well, I say a lot of the time that System Shock is probably my favorite game. Period. The second game is great in its own right, and it has many of its different aspects and features. But just playing the original System Shock in 1994 was completely and utterly mind blowing for so many different reasons that it's kind of hard to explain to a modern sort of gamer how unique that experience was of that original game. The depth of the gameplay, which today might be confusing, or the level design might be convoluted, or there's lots of different things you could say, but they packed so much into that original game that it was so far from Doom. You know what I mean? It's like so far from Doom.
Well, that was really the impetus behind deciding to do the remake, is we kind of rediscovered it. With the advent of the mouse look mod that came from a System Shock community member who we then hired to work on the enhanced edition. Yeah. We saw that an entirely multiple generations of gamers were getting to enjoy and play System Shock for the first time. Yeah. And not only did we respect and understand the legacy that it had made, but on top of that, we realized that no one had ever made anything quite like it since. And so it became kind of the perfect opportunity for us to try it and remake it.
Yeah. There are so many games that you could name, like you could talk about Deus Ex and Half-Life and even the second System Shock games that are, highly regarded in their own right and justifiably so. But I truly believe that System Shock was the impetus for everything that came after in terms of storytelling within games, regardless of the platform or whatever. It was an immersive world that you just got lost in, That brings up a good question, actually. When you first sit down and decide we're going to take this project on, this is a game that's loved by so many people, including yourself, and balancing like the expectations of what fans want or what they're expecting, and to try and put it into a modern day port, and the pressure of that has to be enormous. How do you even start to approach a project like this?
Well, we had to approach it multiple times.
Yes.
That's for one. I want to make that clear. We didn't get it right the first time, nor did, by all accounts, is it perfect in its current state.
Yeah.
But it just took a lot of experimentation, and we did things that made it more challenging for us. But in the end, I think the results are much better because of it. But we took, kind of a democratic approach to the design, because we had so many people on the team, again, that were so passionate about the project. They all had more or less their own opinions on how we should do things. And it didn't matter what their discipline was, whether they were an animator, an artist, or even the producer role. Everybody got to kind of weigh in on what it was that they wanted to do. Even down in the most minute detail sometimes. Like, how do we want this one mechanic to behave in this scenario here? Well, is it like the original? Well, yeah, but maybe we should change it because it's going to offset this other thing that we did. And as a result, again, I think that the end product is extremely strong, and it kind of ticks all those boxes. But the development process was grueling because there really wasn't one person kind of dictating how things were going to be done. And, everything kind of came down to compromise.
Right.
The other thing that we'd be remiss if we didn't point out is how much of the direction we got from our Kickstarter backers. We said we were going to do something. We showed a demo of it. And when we talk about our various pivots and our setbacks, a large part of that was when we got feedback from the community that said, this isn't what we wanted, this isn't what you showed us. And we took that very, very seriously. When I say, to the fans out there listening, when I say I took it very seriously, the expression, put your money where your mouth is, we did.
Right.
A lot of those costs were paid directly, out of the NightDive pockets. money that came from, from real people on there. And, so that we didn't take that stuff lightly. But when our fans told us that we had gone off in the wrong direction, we course corrected on that.
Right. Did you come to the conclusion they were right? Or
Yes.
It wasn't right? It wasn't just, or sometimes you have to, it's like if you're going to produce thinking from a musician standpoint, if you're going to produce an album, it's often best to get somebody else to mix it, someone else to look at it, because otherwise you'll make decisions that you think are right, but you can't stand outside of the thing and see it in its complete sort of form. You got a vision yourself, and
I would also offer that it's the kind of thing, the groups that I respect most are the ones that are not afraid to show their work early on. And back in the day, the Who were working on this new concept. They were going to have an album where all the songs built on one another, the first rock opera.
Right.
Well, the first time that they played any of that stuff in front of people, it was at Woodstock.
Right.
So nothing like getting 400,000 people to give you their opinion.
Yeah. Exactly. And also the like in terms of actually I just lost the point of what I was going to get. Oh yeah, no, I remember. Making the decision to switch game engines right in the middle of a project. It makes me think of it's a different thing, but it makes me think of Daikatana. When they were working all in one different direction, and then they decide that their things are going completely wrong because technology has gone completely ahead of them. So do they keep working with what they have, or do they drop everything, start over? It was a major decision.
I was just writing about this because I've been trying to process a lot of the thoughts that I've had over the last 7 years that have kind of led me here. And I distinctly remember being about halfway through the Kickstarter, and I think we had already reached our goal. And we said to ourselves, well, how much further could we push this if we offered a console version? And so we did. And as a result, we got more funding, but then the decision had to be made to drop Unity, because up to that point, there had only been 1 or 2 games shipped on Unity across Xbox One and PlayStation 4, I think, and they just did not perform that well.
Right.
Performance-wise, maybe not financially, of course, but they just didn't run well, and they were lackluster experiences. And so we went with the gold standard as far as cross-platform development goes. We switched to Unreal.
Right. Oh, and just to address, because a couple of people did mention it, and hopefully I'm not stepping over the boundary. There is going to be a console release of this at some point.
Absolutely. Right? We're finishing off the PC version, and we've already had console versions that's both PlayStation and Xbox versions have started going through our QA process. We have a very rigorous QA process now. We have an internal team. We have a outside agency that we use, Quantic Labs. They've been absolutely great to work with. And then our publisher does the final stage of QA on those. So it's a process that's guaranteed to try to find, come as close to perfection as humans can. But it's also a time-consuming process. Our goal is to have the console builds available digitally and on the shelves by holiday season this year.
Excellent.
So not much longer.
Good. Yeah. The other thing that's actually this is a thing about the game that even throughout the whole development of it, and I used to drop by the NightDive Twitch streams when Daniel would be doing texture work and whatnot, and changing the lighting and just adding stuff in, and it was just interesting to watch the project develop. And one of the things, of course, that we hadn't seen because you hadn't decided what to do was with cyberspace. Like in this game, cyberspace is probably one of the most divisive parts of the entire game. I personally really liked the original cyberspace idea, but I totally get how people would get into it and not know how to operate the thing. Even if you knew the controls, you couldn't figure how to go forward, backwards, and where to go and whatnot. And I was always curious how you were going to look into it. and from what I have seen, it looks like you basically took the quote descent route,
Yep.
and basically turned it into a flight sim, which is essentially what it is.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Yeah.
That was kind of our first instinct. We're like, let's just do a 6 Degree of Freedom.
Mhm.
Let's just make another game. I mean, it can't be that hard.
Yeah. Well, no, sure. Yeah. And
Let's
also
make another game and put it in the other game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that I found was that the thing about the original cyberspace was it was, I guess, an early 90s idea of almost like Tron. It was almost like an idea of what it would be like if you were suddenly digitized inside a computer, and everything, of course, is going to be wireframe. You know, you live in Battle Zone basically, and you're floating around in this weird atmosphere. But by today's standards, people just are like, this doesn't make any sense. You know. So I just wanted to say I like the direction that you took, but I think that's a good example of something that is paramount in this game to me. Like the cyberspace thing in the original game was definitive, but you took a totally different approach to it. Like most of the game, when I see what you've done with a lot of the different levels, it looks like the world of System Shock. It doesn't seem like it's completely foreign. It looks unique and different, but there's something familiar about it all. But to be able to just sort of like, okay, with cyberspace, we have to do this. We can't do it this other way. You know what I mean?
It still shares a lot of the same kind of hallmarks.
Yeah.
Like the general aesthetic or the idea is still there. It's just much more readable. And I think that was the biggest issue with the original, is that the walls were transparent and there was just a thin grid basically leading you around.
Right.
And so it was just difficult to see where you could and couldn't go. And I think as long as, you know, we updated that aspect of it, it plays and it kind of feels like the original, but without taking so many liberties that it feels alien.
No.
You know, there are a lot of things that we copied over, like the game of life. The patterns appear on the walls of the original. They appear in the remake as well. So there's little nods like that everywhere.
Yeah.
Where if we could, you know, copy it over and replicate it, we would, just so that there was yet another kind of instance of a foundation there to the original.
If you're one of those people who've spent a lot of time memorizing door codes, good news, they still work. So
there are some random things though. I think the reactor levels are still random, right? Because that was, I think, a great thing about the original game, is that you still had to play the game because you couldn't just get the 6 digits and just put the same 6 digits in every single time you played it.
Right.
Yes, speedrunners will be cursing us because it's going to be like one of those random seed type things, especially later on where there's other puzzles that have been randomized. So,
well, good.
Just in general, our goal is not to do one-to-one ports or recreations of classic games.
Right.
Our goal in there is to recapture the way that they made you feel when you played them the first time, and to bring that feeling to new audiences, and as memory for people that played the first ones. So, you know, probably the clearest example that I can give is from a non-System Shock game. When we were first working on Turok, if you played the original version of Turok, the pre-NightDive version of it, the thing that was most obvious to you was the fog, right? You couldn't see very far. And the reason that the original team had made the decision about using the fog is they wanted to have greater visual acuity, greater detail, but the hardware wouldn't support very much of that. You were pushing the boundaries of that. So they said, how about if we do this? We use the fog to narrow the sight distance, but when we up all the detail there. Well, of course, modern hardware has changed, and so now you can play Turok as they would have wanted to do it. You can also go in there and change back to the fog setting if you want to see what that looks like, because we respect the original work. But this is what they intended. The same thing happened with Shadow Man. In the course of working from the source code, we found, Steve, 2 incomplete levels. I believe it was 2 incomplete levels that had been started had been sketched out, but they ran out of time or resources, and we were able to complete those and put them into the game. So for fans of the franchise, that was the first time that they saw them, but they sure were going to feel authentic. It wasn't something that we made anew. It felt as though it was built by the designers of the original game, because it was.
Right. It again, I tend to use musical examples, being a musician and whatnot, right? But in my experience of teaching people, and say, for example, they're learning how to play a particular song, I've always found that you need to capture the essence of the song. You don't have to play every single note exactly the same. You don't have to play it completely identical, except there are times when you do. There are certain things that have to be there, or it's not the song. But that's because the essence of what it is contained in the detail. But the most important thing is the essence. And as long as you capture the essence of what it is you're trying to recreate, it gives you a little leeway to be able to adapt it in a way that, like you say, a way that you believe would have been done if the original developers had the tech or the know-how or whatever.
And that kind of brings us to a point about talking about some of the giants whose shoulders we stood on.
Mm-hmm.
We've been very fortunate in our history as NightDive to have gotten to work with some of the greats in the game industry and some of the greats outside that. One of the first things that attracted me to NightDive back in the early days before I had joined was Steve sat down with Harlan Ellison and did an interview about I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Mm-hmm.
That was a story that was done, and Steve
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall there. My God.
Steve had also done a story and then sat down an interview with Paul Neurath.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was on the homepage of NightDive when I joined, and I was like, well, he's clearly somebody that respects the history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But for sure, yeah, no, absolutely.
Listen, I only say nice things about you, Steve, on interviews. I'll be back to insulting you, when we're in private.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I can. Well, the thing is, through all the humbleness and everything else, it's that this is the thing, though. I mean, it's like to me, a lot. Well, we were discussing it earlier about how your passion for stuff shows through, and no matter what, you might not be thinking of it as anything special because you're just doing what you like and it's enjoyable and whatnot. But then, if you look back on it and see what you've accomplished, you're sort of like, wow, holy crap, did I do that? This I don't even know how this happened, and I can see how that can be the case, but at the same time, you took the initial steps, and suddenly this is where you are today,
Well, thank you.
I don't know how else to put it. Another thing, and I know that people have been putting up questions on here, and sometimes I'm sort of letting them go by because they're talking about everybody has projects that they would love to see you guys tackle, and I know there's things that I'm sure that you are have in the works that you can't really discuss or whatnot. Well, one of the things someone did mention, System Shock 2, of course, and right now, of course, the last thing on your mind is to do anything other than just release this.
That's not true. We have multiple projects going. We're very much heads down on System Shock 2 Enhanced Edition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's coming along great, and we're heading down the final stretches before completion on that.
Right.
So we do have that. We are working on multiple other projects. We have 3 other games that are currently in development. We run a number of teams. The System Shock team is big enough that it's its own thing. On the Keck side of things, which is where Samuel Villarreal, James Haley, Edward Richardson, the rest of our team are at. They are working on multiple projects also, most of which should be out before the end of this year.
Excellent. Yeah, because I mean, I also want to say that I'm one of those people. There are a number of us who think that you guys should take as much time as you possibly need to get things done the way that you want to get them done. So if you give us a release date, it's not going to be cast in stone. until it's cast in stone. You know what I mean? It's like the demand from people to want to know when it's going to happen. I'd like it to happen when it's done. Whenever that
So
is.
I think we'll just start shadow dropping stuff, and we're not going to announce dates at all.
Good for you. Good for you. Until you know. Well, this is when it's happening, you know. But until then, like I would never want to pressure you into saying when things are going to happen, because, whoop, twiddly-doo, somebody just did something.
It'll be out on a Thursday.
Perfect.
I'm not saying what Thursday. But
Yeah.
Okay, 20 something.
So I'll
live to see it.
I will tell you that we do have a game that's in development that's already been announced, and while we specialize in doing old things, we do some of the old things in very new ways.
Right.
The next title that again has been announced and that's in development is a joint venture. It's Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition.
That's right.
And that is coming from Apogee, New Blood, and NightDive. And it's the first time. All of those names are, of course, pretty important in the history of games and the revival of classic games. It's the first time that we've ever worked together. And I think, as far as I know, it's the first time that three studios have ever worked together, have ever combined on this type of project. So should be very exciting.
And it's definitely a title that is another one of those that really requires the attention, that really deserves the attention. There's lots of things you can say about Rise of the Triad as a game, because it's so there are so many bad levels that people have made of it over the years, and so many everything else. But if you look at the actual game itself, it's just a completely nutty. It's one of the strangest, most bizarre, awesome first-person experiences that's completely laughable, but at the same time, tremendous amount of fun. And maybe some of the levels were a little bit too massive, things like that. But as a game, as it's in and of itself, the fact that you guys are tackling it, I think is tremendous. You know. Oh, there's one other thing that I wanted to mention as well, and of course the recent acquisition by Atari, which and I know there are people who are like, oh no, here we go, you know, this is the end of everything, and I personally don't necessarily see that. I think it's an opportunity, isn't it? How are you guys looking at this whole situation with and your partnership now with Atari?
Well, it should be noted that as of, I don't know how, Larry, like a year now, year and a half, that Atari has been under completely new leadership. So the new CEO, Wade Rosen, is a longtime friend of ours, an early investor in NightDive. And his love of classic games, I would say, even surpasses my own. It's pretty wild to even consider that. Yep. But he's proved time and time again that that's where his heart and where his passion lies. And that's what Atari needed.
I lived through that era. I was a grown man during that era, and I don't remember the games that Wade brings up.
Yeah.
But you know, again, we're really fortunate. I mean, I know I've been fortunate that I met Stephen at a time in my life that it was really important. Coming out of the corporate world of GameStop and having a chance to work at NightDive, a place that allowed me and many of the other people to flourish. But Wade is very much of the cut of the same cloth. Wade looks at people, understands what you do well, and allows you to do more of it. And that was something that was a logical growth stage for NightDive Studios.
Yep. Yeah, and also, I mean, I don't think it was the impression that I get, it was a decision to make. It wasn't like suddenly you thought, my God, we're going to need somebody to take over because we're not, we can't handle this, whatever, blah, blah, blah. It seems like a movement up as opposed to sort of it's not a move of desperation. It's one of like, this will be a good partnership to fulfill what we want to do within a company that has a similar vision,
And it was something that had been talked about and had been discussed for quite a while before we took steps to doing it.
Right.
But again, Wade was our external investor.
Yeah.
And while we met with Wade, we had 3 days of meetings after the Series A took place. Wade's instructions to us were, you know what you've been doing? Do more of it.
There you go. There you go. You think that's why when someone wants to take a company, they say, oh, this company is doing a lot of great work, and hopefully they'll continue to do more of that great work. So we're going to help you out, and you do what you got to do, you know. And they let you do it.
That's been the nature of our partnership there. So.
Yep. Excellent. I'm not sure if there's. I know there were some questions that flew by, but a lot of them are fairly. Generic sort of stuff about what's coming up on games and and of course the big games that people want to do. I don't know if there's anybody that has anything else to add there about the waypoint system on easy difficulty. Doesn't see there's a waypoint for the game. There's no waypoints. There's no waypoint system in System Shock at all, is there?
Well, so that's a good point. There was a critique that we received kind of late, despite our best efforts, we decided to add in. So the next patch will have a waypoint system. It's very basic.
Yeah.
It's not very
right.
It's not a breadcrumb system. But yes, on the lowest difficulty for I think puzzles, or I forget which one it's going to be in, but there will be that in the upcoming patch.
Yeah,
so.
I must say, I mean, as an older gamer who's used to a lot of the old school where the hell am I of the 90s, I totally understand that a lot of contemporary gamers who are so used to basically having guide arrows, quest points, and things. Okay, well, I have to go over here, and you really don't have to necessarily know where you are. You just I have to get to there. Oh, okay. Whereas in this game, especially in the original, and also I imagine in this one, there's a lot of where the hell am I? But I don't know. Gamers from the 90s, I mean, I don't know where I was in the 90s, through most of it. So
we'd survived Reagan, so we were just glad to be at the other side of that.
There you go.
Sorry, did I get political?
No, I don't think so. Nancy, was it Nancy you're talking about? No.
Absolutely. As Nancy Reagan famously commented about the waypoint system, just say no.
Just say no. There was something I always say. I mean, if you weren't lost in a game, then you never played a game from the 90s.
Right. I have to apologize to all of our viewers. If you expected to get through this interview without hearing one dad joke, you don't know me.
Yeah, will there be a console edition of the System Shock 1 Enhanced Edition? That's a different thing.
Yeah, there isn't any plan to do that. Wowever, we've gotten pretty good at mapping a lot of controls to a controller lately. So I would say it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it's not something that we're currently working on.
Right. But you never know.
Yeah, that would be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, they're going to want fast travel next. That's right.
Yeah, well, you got the elevators. I mean, you just have to walk to them.
Oh, and also great job with the elevator music. There you go.
Yes, that was like the first piece of music that was ever written.
Yeah.
And I've probably listened to that more than anything else over the last 8 years.
Yeah. You just can't not have some kind of allusion to the original, that sort of thing. It's the best elevator music ever. Absolutely. I guess we've pretty much covered everything. Listen, guys, thank you ever so much for taking part of this. It's been a real treat to be able to talk to you guys. We've corresponded lots of times over the years, Stephen, and it's a great chance to actually speak with you.
Yeah, this isn't the first time we've done this, is it?
Yeah, it is. We've never done an actual talking thing. We've chatted on Discord and on Twitter, and
I think I came into one of your streams one night and just started handing out System Shock keys.
You did.
I do remember that. Yeah.
Yep. They weren't God keys though, but that was okay.
Well, this is my first time here, but I'll come back and we can shoot the breeze about music. So
yeah,
so
there you go. Absolutely. Listen, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm going to take a very short little break so that I can flip things over, and we're going to take a look at the actual game for the very first time. I've seen a little bit of it earlier this afternoon, and I played a bit just to get things going to make sure that it, it was all running well and captured and all that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into it. So to everybody here, just stick around, and I will be right back.
Cheers, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Glenn.
I will, as soon as I can get out of here. There we go.